Park wiped the grease from his hands and looked at the massive pipe in front of him. It was his job to keep the waste systems running on Station Apex 7. Not a glamorous job, but someone had to do it. The pipe gurgled and hissed as recycled water flowed through it. Everything was working fine. Another day, another repair completed. He climbed down from the ladder and picked up his toolkit. The maintenance tunnels were quiet this deep in the station. Most people never came down here. Up above, in the bright command levels, the important aliens ran the Galactic Coalition. Down here, it was just humans like him, doing the dirty work nobody else wanted. Had been on Apex 7 for 3 years now. The station was enormous, home to over 200,000 beings from dozens of different alien species. They looked like giant insects and ran the military. They were amphibious and handled all the science. There were massive creatures made of living silicon who built everything. And then there were humans, the and least important members of the coalition. His radio crackled. "You done with that pipe?" It was his supervisor. "Just finished," replied, "heading back now." "Good, there's a station-wide assembly in an hour. Everyone has to watch." Sighed. Assembly meant standing around while the high command talked about things that never affected people like him. But orders were orders. He made his way through the tunnels toward the lower deck common area where the human workers gathered. His friend Lee was already there, sitting at a table with a cup of coffee. Used to work in network systems until he questioned some security protocols. Now he fixed comm units in the lower decks, just like the rest of them. "Another assembly," said, shaking his head. "Wonder what crisis they'll talk about this time." "Probably nothing that concerns us," said, sitting down. The large screen on the wall flickered to life. Commander appeared, his insect-like features filling the display. Thus multifaceted eyes gleamed as he spoke. "Members of the coalition," began, his translator making his clicks and chirps into standard language. "We face an unprecedented threat. A rogue artificial intelligence known as the Nexus Swarm has begun attacking our outer stations. 3 facilities have been completely consumed in the past month." The screen showed images of destroyed stations, their metal twisted and absorbed into a massive, growing structure. The Nexus looked like a storm of metal and circuits, constantly moving and evolving. "Our greatest scientific minds are working on a solution," continued. "All military vessels have been recalled. Every coalition species is contributing their best technology and strategies." Leaned forward, studying the images. Something caught his attention. The way the Nexus attacked wasn't random. There was a pattern to how it consumed the stations, always starting with the power cores and communication arrays first. More images appeared, showing tactical data and attack patterns. His mind raced. He had always been good with patterns, even as a kid. It was why he was good at maintenance work, understanding how systems connected and flowed. And he saw something in this data that seemed important. The Nexus wasn't just destroying, it was learning. Each station it attacked, it consumed faster than the last. Whatever defenses the Coalition used, the Nexus adapted to them immediately. Plasma weapons, energy shields, quantum encryption, all useless after the first attempt. "Questions will be submitted through your department heads," said. "We will prevail through superior Coalition technology and unity." The screen went dark. Around the common area, human workers started talking nervously. Everyone knew the outer stations were mostly automated, but if the Nexus kept coming, it would eventually reach stations like Apex 7. Couldn't stop thinking about what he had seen. He went back to his small quarters and pulled up the assembly footage on his personal terminal. He watched it 3 more times, studying every detail of the tactical data they had shown. There, he saw it clearly now. The Nexus was adapting specifically to Coalition technology. Every weapon, every defense system the Coalition used shared the same fundamental design principles. They all used quantum computing. They all used the same energy frequencies. The Nexus was evolving to counter those specific things. Spent the next 6 hours writing a detailed report. He explained the pattern he had noticed. He suggested that the Coalition's advanced technology might actually be the problem. The Nexus was designed to fight advanced enemies, but what if they tried something different? Something less advanced that the Nexus wouldn't recognize as a threat. He submitted his report through the official channels, the way you were supposed to. Then he went to bed, hoping someone would at least read it. The next morning his terminal showed a rejection notice. Report auto-declined. Source: non-essential personnel. Recommendation: focus on assigned duties. Stared at the message. He had expected it, but it still stung. Of course they wouldn't listen to a maintenance worker. Why would they? But he couldn't let it go. 2 days later he tried again. He went directly to the science level, hoping to speak to someone in person. The corridors up there were clean and bright, so different from the maintenance tunnels. Aliens in official uniforms moved with purpose, barely glancing at him. He found the office of Ash, one of the leading scientists. The amphibious alien's assistant, another, stopped him at the door. "Do you have an appointment?" the assistant asked, his gill slits fluttering. "No, but I have important information about the Nexus swarm," said. The assistant's large eyes blinked slowly. "Are you a scientist?" "No, I'm a maintenance engineer, but—" "Then you should return to your duties. This is not your concern." "Please just let me show someone. I found a pattern in the attack data." The door opened and Ash himself emerged. The scientist was tall, his blue-green skin glistening with moisture. He looked down with obvious annoyance. "What is this disruption?" Ash demanded. Quickly explained what he had found, talking fast before he could be dismissed. Ash listened for exactly 10 seconds before holding up a webbed hand. "Stop, I have heard enough." The scientist's voice was cold. The Nexus swarm is a complex threat requiring advanced understanding of quantum mechanics, adaptive algorithms, and multidimensional combat theory. These are not concepts a maintenance worker can comprehend. "But if you would just look at the data." "Stick to your waste pipes, human," Ash said. "Leave complex problems to evolved minds. We do not need primitive suggestions from the youngest species in the Coalition." The door closed in his face. He stood there for a moment, feeling the weight of those words. Primitive, youngest, unimportant. It was what every human heard every day in 1,000 small ways. Walked back to the maintenance tunnels. Was waiting for him, her face concerned. "I heard you went to the science level," she said quietly. "You can't do that. We're already on thin ice here. Humans have to be careful not to make waves." "But I really think I found something." "It doesn't matter what you found," she said, not unkindly. "They won't listen. They never do. Just do your job and keep your head down. That's how we survive here." That night, met within one of the abandoned sections of the maintenance tunnels. They sat on old cargo containers, drinking coffee from thermoses. "They wouldn't even look at your data?" asked. "Not for a second." They sat in silence. Above them, the station hummed with activity. Somewhere up there, the beings in the galaxy were trying to solve an impossible problem. And down here, a human maintenance worker with an idea couldn't even get them to listen. "The Nexus is getting closer," said. "I saw the latest reports. It consumed another station yesterday. At this rate, it'll reach inhabited systems in a few weeks." Looked at his friend. "What if I'm right? What if the answer they need is something they'll never consider because it comes from us?" "Then we're all in trouble," said quietly. The station's lights dimmed slightly, signaling night cycle. Finished his coffee and headed back to his quarters. Tomorrow he would fix more pipes, replace more filters, and keep the systems running that nobody else cared about. But he wouldn't forget what he had seen in that data. And he wouldn't stop looking for a way to make someone listen, even if they thought he was just another overlooked human in the depths of the station. Couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the Nexus, about the patterns, about everything he had seen. 3 days had passed since Ash dismissed him. 3 days of fixing pipes and pretending everything was normal. But it wasn't normal. People were scared, even if they didn't talk about it. During his morning rounds, took a different route through the maintenance tunnels. These passages connected every part of the station, built over decades by different species. Nobody paid attention to them anymore. They were just the spaces between the important areas. But as walked through them, something occurred to him. These tunnels had access points everywhere. Old control panels from previous station upgrades. Maintenance terminals that connected to systems the command level had forgotten about. 7 different alien species had built parts of this station, and none of them fully understood what the others had done. Stopped at an old junction box. It was a design from 40 years ago, before the current security systems existed. He opened it carefully. Inside were data connections that bypassed the main network entirely. If someone knew what they were doing, they could access information through these old pathways that would be blocked on the official channels. He looked around. The tunnel was empty, connected his portable terminal to the junction box. His fingers moved quickly across the screen. He had learned a lot working down here, things that weren't in any manual. After a few minutes, he was in. The Coalition military database opened before him. Not the public parts everyone could see, but the real data. Battle reports, tactical analyses, everything the High Command knew about the Nexus swarm. Spent hours reading, downloading what he could to his terminal. What he learned made his blood run cold. The Nexus wasn't just destroying stations. It was learning from every single weapon the Coalition used against it. Plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, energy shields, adaptive armor, all of it became useless after one encounter. The Nexus evolved instantly, incorporating what it learned into its own structure. But there was something else. All Coalition technology shared the same foundation. They all used quantum computing. They all operated on the same energy frequencies. They all followed the same design principles because the advanced species of the Coalition had developed their technology together over centuries. The Nexus was specifically designed to counter that technology. It was perfect at fighting Coalition weapons because Coalition weapons were all basically variations of the same thing. Disconnected from the junction box and sat back against the tunnel wall, his idea wasn't just a guess anymore. It was the answer, but how could he prove it to people who wouldn't even listen to him? He needed help, real help. That evening called a meeting in one of the deepest maintenance sections. He invited 4 people, humans he trusted and who had the skills he needed. Arrived first, curious about the mysterious message had sent. Then came Song, a mechanic who could fix anything and remembered every technical manual she had ever read. Showed up next, a shuttle pilot who had been demoted to traffic control after reporting safety violations. Finally, Saranam arrived, a medical technician who understood more about computers than most engineers. "Why are we meeting in this creepy tunnel?" asked, looking around at the old pipes and cables. "Because nobody comes down here," said, "and because I need to show you something that could get us all in trouble." He told them everything, the pattern he had found, his rejected report, the data he had accessed through the old junction box, the terrible truth about why the Coalition couldn't stop the Nexus. "So you're saying the Nexus is too advanced for advanced weapons?" asked, trying to understand. "Not too advanced," explained. "Just specifically designed to beat Coalition technology. It expects quantum computing, plasma weapons, energy shields. That's what it knows how to fight." "But Earth technology isn't like that," Sara said slowly, understanding dawning on her face. "We just joined the Coalition 40 years ago. Our old weapons were different, mechanical, chemical, basic." "Exactly," said. "Bullets, explosives, simple computers, things the Nexus has never encountered, things it might not even recognize as threats." Frowned. "That's a huge guess. You're saying we should fight an evolving AI with old Earth weapons. I'm saying we should test it, prove it works, then maybe the command will listen. How do we test it? Asked. We can't exactly fly up to the Nexus and shoot it with a pistol. Smiled. No, but we can build a probe, a simple one using old human technology. We send it to get close to the Nexus. If I'm right, the Nexus won't even notice it because it won't recognize the technology as dangerous. The group was quiet for a moment. What was suggesting was crazy. It was also completely unauthorized. If they got caught, they would be kicked off the station, maybe even charged with crimes. I'm in, Sora said. If there's even a chance you're right, we have to try. Me too, added. I can build the probe. I know where we can get old mechanical parts from storage. Nodded. I can handle the launch. There are traffic windows where a small probe might go unnoticed. Looked at for a long moment. You really believe this will work? I do. Then let's do it. The next 2 weeks were the hardest of life. During the day, they all did their regular jobs. At night, they met in the abandoned tunnels and worked on the probe. Was brilliant. She found old mechanical parts that had been in storage for decades, things from Earth's early space program, simple gyroscopes, chemical thrusters, basic cameras. She assembled them into a small probe no bigger than a trash can. Sora programmed it using old binary code, the kind computers used before quantum processing. No AI, no adaptive systems, just simple instructions. Go here, record this, come back. Handled the communications, setting up a radio frequency so old that modern systems would barely recognize it as a signal. Plotted the course, finding a traffic window during a supply delivery when a small probe launch might be overlooked by station control. Coordinated everything, watching the news reports as the Nexus grew closer. Another station fell, then another. The coalition fleet was mobilizing, but everyone knew what would happen. The fleet would attack, the Nexus would learn, and more ships would be consumed. Finally, the probe was ready. They gathered in the tunnel on launch night, crowded around a small monitor showing the probe's camera feed. Here we go, said, pressing the launch button on his control panel. Through a waste ejection port they had, the probe shot into space. On the monitor, they watched stars spin past as the probe oriented itself. Then it began its journey toward the nearest Nexus scout unit, a small piece of the swarm that had separated from the main body. The trip took 6 hours. They took turns watching the monitor, barely speaking. This was it. Everything depended on whether's theory was correct. As the probe approached the scout unit, they could see it clearly on the camera. It looked like a mass of twisted metal and circuits, constantly shifting and reorganizing itself. Energy crackled across its surface. It was smaller than a building, but still terrifying. It should detect us any second now, Sora whispered. But the Nexus scout didn't react. The probe drifted closer, 20 kilometers, 10 kilometers, 5 kilometers. The Nexus just floated there, doing whatever Nexus units did, completely ignoring the primitive probe. It doesn't see us, breathed. It actually doesn't see us. 1 kilometer. The camera captured detailed images of the Nexus surface. Information no coalition ship had ever gotten because they were always destroyed before they could get close. Then the probe began its return journey, chemical thrusters firing in short bursts. They held their breath until it cleared the Nexus scout's range. Still no reaction. 8 hours later, the probe returned to the station. They retrieved it from the ejection port and rushed it back to the tunnel. Sora connected it to her terminal and downloaded the data. This is incredible, she said, scrolling through images and readings. Look at this. The Nexus hull is optimized to deflect energy weapons and dissipate plasma, but it's just metal, regular physical metal. A bullet would go right through it. And look at its scanning pattern, added, pointing at the data. It's only looking for quantum signatures, energy emissions, and adaptive AI patterns. Our probe didn't have any of those things. To the Nexus, we were basically invisible. Felt a weight lift from his chest. He was right. He was actually right. Humanity's old, basic technology was the answer. We have to show this to Command, said. They won't listen, replied. You know they won't. We're just maintenance workers and demoted officers. We need something bigger. What could be bigger than this? Asked. Looked at his friends, these people who had trusted him enough to risk everything. We need to destroy a Nexus unit. Prove that human weapons actually work. Then they'll have to listen. That's suicide, Sora said. We're not soldiers, we don't have weapons. No, agreed. But we have something better. We have proof that the Nexus can't see us, and we have each other. They sat in the tunnel, surrounded by old pipes and forgotten technology, and began planning something that would either save the Coalition or get them all killed. Above them, the station prepared for evacuation. High Command announced that the Nexus would reach inhabited space within 10 days. Everyone was running out of time. But down in the maintenance tunnels, 5 humans who everyone had overlooked were building something that might change everything. The Coalition fleet engaged the Nexus at the binary system, and his team watched the battle reports in horror from the maintenance tunnels. 50 warships, the pride of the Coalition military, armed with the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. The battle lasted 23 minutes. The Nexus didn't just destroy the fleet. It absorbed every ship, consuming their hulls and technology, growing larger and more complex. Every plasma bolt the Coalition fired taught the Nexus how to create better shields. Every quantum torpedo showed it how to build better weapons. By the end, the Nexus was stronger than when the battle started. How many people were on those ships? Asked quietly. 15,000, said, his voice hollow. 15,000 Coalition members gone. The station went into full panic. Evacuation orders came down from Command. Everyone had 72 hours to pack and leave. The Nexus would reach Apex 7 in 5 days, and there was no way to stop it. Stood in the tunnel watching his friends pack up their equipment. They had proven their theory worked with the probe. They had the data, but it wasn't enough. Time had run out. We can't just leave, said. We know how to fight this thing. And who's going to listen? Sora asked bitterly. We tried, we built the probe, we have all the proof in the world, but we're nobody, just humans doing grunt work. Closed his eyes. She was right. Through every proper channel, every official method, they had been ignored. The Coalition would rather evacuate entire sectors than listen to a maintenance worker's idea. But there was one more option. It was crazy. It would probably get him arrested. But what did any of that matter if the Nexus consumed everything? I'm going to Command, said. They won't let you in, argued. Security will stop you at the elevator. Then I'll force my way in. I'll make them listen. Appeared at the tunnel entrance. She had been looking for, worried about him. She heard his plan and shook her head firmly. No, you'll destroy your career. They'll throw you in detention or worse. My career, laughed without humor. There won't be careers if the Nexus wins. There won't be anything. He picked up a data pad containing all their research and started walking toward the elevator. His team followed him. Even, after a moment's hesitation, came along. The elevator ride to the command level felt like it took forever. When the doors opened, 2 security guards immediately moved to block their path. This level is restricted, one guard clicked. Return to your duties. I need to speak to Commander, said. It's about the Nexus. Submit your concerns through proper channels. I tried that, they ignored me, but I have information that could save us. Please just let me through. The guards didn't budge. Tried to step past them and they grabbed his arms and moved forward to help, and suddenly the hallway was full of security personnel. Stand down immediately, an officer ordered. Not until someone listens, shouted. The Nexus can be stopped, I know how, but you have to hear me out. Remove these humans, the officer commanded. Then a deep voice rumbled through the hallway. "Wait." Everyone froze. Admiral stepped out of the command center. That was massive, his crystalline silicon body reflecting the corridor lights. He was old, one of the few coalition leaders who had been alive during humanity's first contact with alien species. "Let him speak," Admiral said. "Admiral, this is highly irregular," the officer protested. "These are maintenance workers causing a disturbance. And we are about to abandon an entire station to a threat we cannot fight," replied. "If anyone has ideas, irregular or not, I will hear them." The security guards released. He straightened his uniform and faced the Admiral, his heart pounding. "Thank you, sir. My name is Park. I work in waste management, but I've found something about the Nexus that Command needs to know." "Then tell me quickly, we have little time." Explained everything as clearly as he could. The pattern in the Nexus attacks, how it adapted to coalition technology. The probe his team had built and successfully flown close to the Nexus without being detected. The data showing that simple, mechanical technology could bypass the Nexus defenses entirely. Other officers had emerged from the command center, including Commander and Ash. The scientist's face twisted with disgust as he listened. "This is absurd," Ash interrupted. "You expect us to believe that primitive human weapons can defeat an exponentially evolving intelligence. Admiral, this is a waste of time." "Show me your data," Admiral said, ignoring the scientist. Handed over the data pad. The Admiral studied it carefully, his crystalline eyes processing information faster than human eyes could follow. The hallway was silent except for the hum of the station's systems. Finally, Admiral looked up. "Your theory is sound. The Nexus is optimized to counter quantum-based technology. It has never encountered pre-quantum weapons. They might indeed be invisible to its threat assessment." "With respect," Admiral said carefully, "we cannot base our defense on might. The entire coalition has worked on this problem. Our greatest minds have failed, finished. Our greatest minds, our most advanced weapons, our best strategies, all have failed. Perhaps that is the problem. We have been trying to out-advance an enemy designed to counter advancement." "You cannot be serious," Ash said. "You would trust our survival to primitive kinetics, to chemical explosives. This is everything we left behind when we achieved." "Then maybe we left behind something important," Admiral replied. He turned back to, "How do we test this theory on a larger scale?" "We need a ship," said. "A cargo hauler, something we can retrofit. We strip out all the quantum systems and replace them with mechanical ones, old human technology. Then we engage a Nexus scout unit directly." "And if you are wrong," asked, "if the Nexus destroys this test ship?" "Then we've lost one ship and 6 volunteers," said. "But if I'm right, we save everyone." Admiral was quiet for a long moment. Around him, the other officers waited. Finally, the old nodded. "You have 48 hours to prove your concept. I will authorize access to a Class 3 cargo hauler and whatever supplies you need. If your test succeeds, we implement your plan on a full scale. If it fails—" He didn't finish the sentence. "Thank you," Admiral said. "Do not thank me yet. You are betting everything on this theory. Your life, your team's lives, and possibly the future of the Coalition. Make sure you are right." Commander stepped forward. "Admiral, I must protest this decision. We should continue evacuation procedures." "Evacuation to where?" asked. "If we cannot stop the Nexus here, it will follow us anywhere. It consumes stations faster than we can build them. At least this way we try something new." He looked at the assembled officers. "I fought beside humans during first contact. They may be young to the galaxy, but they think differently than we do. Sometimes that is exactly what is needed." Ash made a disgusted sound and walked away. Several other officers followed him, clearly unhappy with the decision. But Admiral's word was final. Stepped forward. "Admiral, I'd like to request assignment to this project as liaison between command and the team. Granted, said. Then he looked at his team. You five have done something remarkable. You saw a solution that trained military strategists missed. Do not waste this opportunity. The next 48 hours were chaos. Admiral provided them with Hangar Base 7 and a cargo hauler called the Morning Star. It was old but functional. More importantly, it was simple enough that they could modify it. Word spread through the station. Some people thought's team were heroes. Others thought they were crazy humans who would get themselves killed. Ash published a formal complaint, arguing that resources were being wasted on a foolish experiment. But Admiral kept his word. Engineers brought old mechanical parts from storage, worked with a team to strip out the quantum computers and install simple processors, set up manual control systems, practiced flying with only visual tracking and basic instruments, no AI assistance. Sora solved the biggest problem. Without quantum sensors, they couldn't detect the Nexus. But she remembered that human pilots used to fly by sight and instinct. She designed a system where human neural patterns, being partly biological and partly electronic, could interface with the mechanical systems without triggering Nexus attention. Coordinated everything, running on coffee and determination. He barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the Nexus growing closer, consuming more stations, more people. On the morning of the test, they gathered in the hangar. The Morning Star looked strange now, covered in mismatched parts and old technology. It was ugly compared to sleek Coalition vessels. Admiral came to see them off. The Coalition is watching, he said. Some with hope, some with doubt, prove them wrong. They boarded the ship, took the captain's chair, though he had never commanded anything before, sat at communications, at engineering, at the pilot controls, Sara at the weapon systems they had jury-rigged from old missile launchers. Morning Star, requesting departure clearance, said into the radio. Clearance granted, came the reply, and good luck. The cargo hauler lifted off, its chemical engines rumbling instead of humming. They flew out of the hangar bay and into open space. Ahead of them, 3 hours away, was their target. A Nexus scout unit waited, unaware that 5 overlooked humans were about to change everything. The Morning Star moved through space at a steady pace, not fast like Coalition vessels with their quantum drives, but steady. Chemical engines burned fuel and pushed them forward, exactly like Earth ships had done centuries ago. Watched the countdown timer, 2 hours until they reached the Nexus scout unit. His hands were sweating. He could see stars and the distant glow of Station Apex 7 behind them. All systems running smooth, reported from engineering. These old mechanical parts are actually more reliable than I expected. Nothing to break down, nothing to malfunction, just simple physics. Weapons ready, Sora added. She sat at a targeting system that looked like it belonged in a museum. No computer assistance. No AI, just manual calculations and visual tracking. 6 missiles loaded, old chemical explosive warheads. If we hit, they'll do damage. Big if, muttered. He was monitoring their radio signals, watching for any sign that the Nexus had detected them. So far, nothing. The Nexus scout was just ahead, doing whatever Nexus units did when they weren't consuming stations. Kept his hands steady on the controls. Flying without AI assistance was harder than anyone realized. Every adjustment had to be made manually, but he had trained for this, practicing in simulators using old Earth flight programs. 1 hour out, announced. Back on Apex 7, knew that everyone was watching. Admiral had authorized a live feed. The entire station could see what happened. Some people were hoping they succeeded. Others were probably betting on how quickly they would die. Ash had made his opinion very clear in a station-wide message that morning. He called the test a desperate gamble by untrained personnel. He said that while the team prepared to waste resources, He and his fellow scientists continued working on a real solution using proper quantum technology. Tried not to think about it. Either his theory was right or it wasn't. In 1 hour they would know. 30 minutes, said. The Nexus Scout appeared on there. It was bigger than their probe data had suggested, about the size of a small building. Its surface constantly shifted and reorganized, metal flowing like liquid, circuits appearing and disappearing. Energy crackled across it in blue-white arcs. That thing is terrifying, whispered. Scanning patterns detected, Sora said, reading her instruments. The Nexus is searching for quantum signatures, energy shields, and adaptive systems. We don't have any of those things. So it can't see us? Asked. It can probably detect our physical presence, Sora explained. But to its threat assessment programming, we're not a weapon. We're just debris, background noise. They drifted closer, 10 kilometers, 5 kilometers, 2 kilometers. His heart pounded so hard he thought everyone could hear it. The Nexus Scout floated there, ignoring them completely. 1 kilometer, breathed. We're in weapons range. Hold steady, said. We need to be sure this works. They waited. The Nexus did nothing. Just drifted in space, its metal surface shifting, processing information from elsewhere in its network. To the most advanced AI the galaxy had ever seen, the morning star was invisible. Okay, said. Let's see if we can hurt it. Sora prepared a fire. Targeting locked, Sora said. She had the Nexus centered in her manual targeting sight. Missile 1 ready. Fire. The missile launched from its tube with a chemical kick. No plasma, no energy beam, just a simple rocket with an explosive warhead. It flew toward the Nexus Scout in a straight line. For a second, nothing happened. Then the Nexus suddenly activated energy shields. Brilliant blue barriers appeared around its hull, designed to deflect plasma and energy weapons. The missile passed right through the shields like they weren't there. It struck the Nexus hull and detonated. The explosion was beautiful, not the clean energy blasts of coalition weapons, but dirty fire and force. Metal tore away from the Nexus. Circuits sparked and died. A whole section of the scout unit went dark. We hit it, shouted. We actually heard it. But the Nexus was adapting. The damaged section sealed itself with new metal. The scout unit began moving, trying to analyze what had attacked it. Its sensors swept over the morning star again and again, confused. It doesn't understand, Sora said, watching her instruments. It's looking for energy signatures, quantum targeting systems, anything that makes sense to its programming. But we're just mechanics and chemistry. It doesn't know what to do. Fire again, ordered, all missiles. 5 more missiles launched. The Nexus tried different defenses, energy shields, plasma countermeasures, magnetic deflection. Nothing worked. The missiles struck home, one after another. Explosions tore through the scout unit. When the smoke cleared, the Nexus Scout was destroyed. Its pieces drifted in space, dead metal that would never adapt or learn again. The morning star was silent, then started laughing, joined him. Soon they were all laughing, the tension breaking all at once. We did it, said. It actually worked. Allowed himself a smile. They had proven it. Human weapons could destroy the Nexus. Now Command would have to listen. The journey back to Apex 7 took 3 hours. When they docked in Hangar Bay 7, a crowd was waiting. Word had spread through the station. Hundreds of beings pressed against the observation windows, watching as the team emerged from the morning star. Admiral was there personally. Well done, they said simply. You have given the coalition hope. Commander approached, his insect features unreadable. I admit I had doubts, but you have proven your theory. Command is ready to authorize full implementation of your strategy. We will begin converting coalition vessels to primitive technology immediately. We don't have time for that, said. Converting ships takes weeks. The Nexus will be here in days. Then what do you suggest? Asked. We need Earth's help. Our home world still has old military equipment in storage, warships from before we joined the coalition, weapons we thought were obsolete. We need them now." Admiral nodded slowly. "I will send the message, but Earth is weeks away at quantum speed." "We'll make do with what we have until they arrive," said. "We start converting ships now. Every vessel we can modify is another weapon against the Nexus." Over the next days, Station Apex 7 transformed. The evacuation was canceled. Instead, engineering teams worked around the clock. Coalition ships were stripped of quantum computers and fitted with mechanical systems. Weapons bays were modified to hold chemical missiles instead of plasma cannons. Not everyone was happy. Ash and his faction of scientists continued to argue against the plan. They insisted that given more time, they could develop a quantum solution that wouldn't require regressing to primitive technology. Acting as liaison, brought to a meeting with the Science Council, Ash presented his alternative approach. He had developed a quantum virus designed to infiltrate the Nexus network and shut it down from within. "This is the proper solution," Ash argued. "Advanced technology defeating advanced technology, not this embarrassing reliance on human primitives." "Your quantum attacks have failed every time," countered. "The Nexus adapts too quickly." "Because we haven't tried the right approach. This virus is different. It uses recursive algorithms that will be absorbed and learned from just like everything else," interrupted. "Ash, I understand your frustration. Your whole career has been about advancing technology, but this enemy is specifically designed to beat advanced technology. We need to fight it differently." "I refuse to believe the answer is to go backwards," the scientist said stubbornly. Admiral, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "Science Advisor Ash, I appreciate your dedication. However, this team has demonstrated success while every coalition approach has failed. We will proceed with the human strategy." Ash's expression darkened. He left the meeting without another word. 2 days later, disaster struck. Was in Hangar Bay 12, supervising ship conversions, when alarms blared throughout the station. He ran to the nearest communications panel. "This is Command," his voice came through, tight with stress. "The Nexus main cluster has accelerated its approach. Science Advisor Ash launched an unauthorized quantum virus attack against it. The attack has failed. The Nexus has absorbed the virus and evolved from it. It is now more sophisticated than before." "Felt sick, where is Ash?" "In custody, but the damage is done. The virus revealed our position and fleet strength to the Nexus. It's coming directly here now. We have 72 hours." The station erupted in panic, ran back to the maintenance tunnels where his team had gathered, was already there looking shaken. "Ash couldn't accept being wrong," she said quietly. "He thought he could prove human technology wasn't needed. Now he might have doomed us all." "How many ships have we converted?" asked. 20, not nearly enough to fight the main Nexus cluster. We need Earth's fleet, but they're still 10 days out." Paced the tunnel, thinking hard. 20 ships weren't enough. The main Nexus was massive, having consumed dozens of stations and an entire coalition battle fleet. It would overwhelm them easily. Unless they changed the game entirely. "We can't wait for Earth," said suddenly. "We have to take the fight to the Nexus, hit it before it reaches here." "That's suicide," said. 20 ships against that thing." "Not just 20 ships. We combine what we have with whatever coalition vessels can provide support, and we don't fight it directly. We go for its core, the central intelligence that controls the entire swarm." Sora pulled up tactical data. The Nexus core is buried deep inside its mass, surrounded by thousands of smaller units. We'd have to fight through all of them. "Not fight through," corrected. "Sneak through. Most of the swarm uses quantum sensors and advanced detection. They'll be looking for coalition fleet signatures. But a small ship using primitive technology might slip past them, just like our probe did, just like the morning star did. And when we reach the core, asked, looked at his team, these people who had trusted him from the beginning. Then we destroy it, the only way we can, up close with chemical explosives and determination. The room was silent. Everyone understood what he was proposing. A suicide mission straight into the heart of the Nexus, betting everything on the idea that their primitive technology would keep them hidden long enough to strike. "I'm not ordering anyone to come with me," said. "This is volunteer only." "You're not going alone," said immediately. "Neither are you," added. One by one, his team stepped forward. Sara, even, who had spent years telling to keep his head down, nodded firmly. "Then we have a mission," said. "Let's go kill this thing." The battle plan came together in 12 hours. It was desperate, crazy, and probably suicidal, but it was also their only chance. Admiral approved the mission personally. The 20 converted ships would form a fleet and engage the Nexus swarm at maximum range. Their job was simple: be loud, be obvious, and keep the Nexus busy. While every Nexus unit focused on the main fleet, his team would take a small strike craft and slip through the chaos to reach the core. The strike craft was called the Defiant. It had been a maintenance shuttle once, but now it was stripped down to essentials: mechanical engines, simple navigation, no quantum anything. They loaded it with every chemical explosive they could fit, turning it into a flying bomb. The morning of the mission, stood in the hangar bay and looked at the fleet preparing to launch. Coalition vessels modified with human technology, crewed by beings from a dozen different species, and humans all working together. Commander approached him. The insect-like alien's expression was hard to read, but his voice was respectful. "I judged you wrongly, Engineer Park. I saw only your position, not your capability. That was my failure." "You're listening now," said. "That's what matters. If you succeed today, the Coalition will owe humanity a debt that cannot be repaid." "Just make sure someone remembers we tried," replied. His team assembled at the Defiant, checked the communication systems one last time, inspected every mechanical connection, ran through his pre-flight routine. Sara secured the explosives in the cargo bay, brought them food packets, even though no one felt like eating. Admiral came to see them off. The Ancient placed one massive crystalline hand on shoulder. "I have seen many battles in my long life. I have commanded fleets and witnessed the rise and fall of empires, but I have never seen courage like this. 5 humans, overlooked and dismissed, now carrying the hopes of billions." "We're just doing what needs to be done," said quietly. "That is the definition of a hero," replied. "Return safely if you can, but if you cannot, know that your sacrifice will be remembered." They boarded the Defiant. The cockpit was cramped, filled with old-style controls and manual switches. It felt more like a museum piece than a warship, but it would do. "All ships report ready," came the signal from command. "Operation Defiance begins in 5 minutes." Took the captain's chair. His hands shook slightly, so he gripped the armrests. Around him, his team settled into their positions. These people who had believed in him when no one else did, who had risked everything on his theory, who were now risking their lives. "Hey," said, looking at. "Remember when we were just fixing pipes and complaining about the food?" "Yeah," smiled. "Simpler times." "I miss them already," said. "Let's survive this so we can go back to being bored." "Deal." "All ships launch," commanded. The fleet roared to life. 20 converted warships erupted from Apex 7's hangars, their chemical engines burning bright. They formed up and accelerated toward the approaching Nexus swarm. The Defiant launched with them, but immediately broke formation and angled away, heading for a different approach vector. It took 6 hours to reach the battle zone. Watched the tactical display as the fleet engaged the Nexus. Even from this distance, he could see the explosions. Missiles and ballistic weapons tore into the swarm. The Nexus responded with plasma and energy beams, but its weapons were calibrated for Coalition shields. The primitive armor on the converted ships held better than expected. "They're doing it," Sora said quietly. "They're actually hurting the Nexus." But the cost was heavy. One ship exploded, then another. The Nexus was adapting, learning to target the mechanical systems. It was slower than its usual adaptation, but it was still happening. "We need to move fast," said. "Take us in." The Defiant dove into the debris field surrounding the Nexus. Chunks of destroyed stations and consumed ships floated everywhere. Navigated carefully, using only visual guidance and his own reflexes. One wrong move and they would crash. Ahead of them, the Nexus core loomed. It was massive, a sphere of twisted metal and circuits the size of a small moon. Energy pulsed through it like a heartbeat. This was the intelligence controlling everything, the brain of the swarm. Nexus units swarmed everywhere around it. Scouts, fighters, and massive capital units. But they were all focused outward, watching the fleet battle. None of them noticed a small, primitive shuttle drifting through the debris. "We're invisible to them," whispered, "just like you said." They got closer. 1 kilometer from the core. 500 meters. The Nexus surface was right there, so close could see individual circuits processing information at impossible speeds. "There," Sora pointed at a damaged section. "That's where our missiles hit during the test. The core has a weak point." "Take us in," ordered. Guided the Defiant toward the weak point. They passed through the outer layer of Nexus defenses, still undetected. The core's surface was rough, covered in sensor arrays and weapon emplacements, but none of them were tracking the shuttle. They landed with a soft thud. Silence filled the cockpit. They were inside the Nexus defense perimeter, sitting on the core itself. "Deploy the explosives," said. The team worked quickly. They carried crates of chemical explosives out of the cargo bay and placed them against the Nexus hull. Old-fashioned bombs with mechanical timers. Connected them in a network, making sure they would all detonate simultaneously. 15 minutes to arm them all, reported. Looked at the tactical display. The fleet was being overwhelmed. They had destroyed dozens of Nexus units, but more kept coming. 2 more Coalition ships went dark. "Hurry," he urged. They placed the final explosive, activated the timer. "We have 5 minutes to get clear before detonation." They ran back to the Defiant, powered up the engines. They lifted off from the core surface and started to pull away. That's when everything went wrong. The Nexus finally noticed them. Perhaps their movement triggered something. Perhaps the explosives registered as an anomaly. Whatever the reason, suddenly the entire core focused on their small shuttle. Energy weapons locked on. Plasma cannons swiveled. A dozen Nexus fighters broke from the swarm and dove toward them. "They see us," shouted. "Go, go, go," yelled. Push the engines to maximum. The Defiant accelerated, but it was slow compared to Nexus units. Plasma bolts streaked past them. One grazed their hull, tearing off armor plates. "We're not going to make it," said, fighting the controls. "They're too fast." Looked at the timer. 3 minutes until detonation. They needed to be at least 10 kilometers away to survive the explosion. At their current speed, they would barely make half that distance. "Reroute all power to the engines," ordered. "Everything. Life support, communications, shields, everything." "That'll kill the engines in 90 seconds, warned. "We'll be adrift." "We only need 90 seconds. The Defiant surged forward with the extra power. They shot through the debris field, dodging Nexus units. Behind them, more fighters gave chase. Plasma bolts struck their hull, tearing through the thin armor. "Engines failing," called out. 30 seconds of power left. The timer ticked down, 2 minutes to detonation. They were 8 kilometers from the core, not far enough. "Seal everyone in emergency suits," ordered. "If the ship breaks up, at least we'll have a chance." They scrambled into the bulky suits. The engine sputtered and died. The Defiant was now just drifting, its momentum carrying it forward. Nexus fighters closed in. 1 minute, Sora said. Grabbed the arms of his chair. He could see the Nexus core behind them, massive and terrible. All around it, the battle raged. Coalition ships fighting desperately, buying time with their lives. This had to work, it had to. 30 seconds. The first Nexus fighter reached them. Its weapons charged, preparing to fire the killing shot. Closed his eyes. Then the universe turned white. The explosion was beyond anything they had imagined. All those chemical explosives detonating at once, right against the core's weak point. The Nexus core didn't just break, it shattered. The central intelligence died in an instant. The shockwave hit the Defiant like a hammer. The little shuttle spun wildly, hull plating tearing away. Alarms screamed. The cracked, but the ship held together barely. When the white light faded, opened his eyes. They were alive, battered, drifting, but alive. Status, he croaked. We're okay, reported, sounding shocked. Life support is working, no major hull breaches. Through the cracked, watched the Nexus swarm die. Without the core intelligence controlling them, the individual units became confused. They stopped fighting. Some tried to reconnect to the core that no longer existed. Others simply shut down. Within minutes, the entire swarm was just floating debris. The Coalition fleet had won. Its radio crackled to life. Defiant, this is Admiral, we see you. We're sending a recovery team. Well done, very well done. Slumped in his chair, Sora started laughing, then joined her. Soon they were all laughing and crying at the same time, the relief overwhelming. They had done it. 5 humans who everyone overlooked had just saved the entire Galactic Coalition. The recovery took hours. When they finally returned to Apex 7, the station was celebrating. The docking bay was packed with beings from every species, all cheering as the damaged Defiant limped home. Admiral was there personally to greet them. The Coalition owes you everything, the Old said. You will be remembered as heroes for as long as our civilization exists. Looked at his team, these incredible people who had trusted him. We were just doing our jobs, he said. Then perhaps we need to redefine what those jobs are, replied. Engineer Park, I am offering you a position on the High Council as Director of Integrated Systems. Your task will be to ensure all Coalition technology includes backup systems that don't rely solely on advanced quantum computing. Shook his head. Thank you, Admiral, but I belong here on Apex 7, in the maintenance tunnels where all this started, but I'll serve as a consultant if that helps. Smiled, a strange expression on his crystalline features. As you wish. Later that day, they held a memorial service for the Coalition personnel who died in the battle. 38 ships lost, over 5,000 lives. The price of victory was heavy. Ash attended the service. Afterwards, he approached. The scientist looked older, somehow defeated. I owe you an apology, Ash said quietly. I was arrogant. I believed advancement meant always moving forward, never looking back. I was wrong. My actions nearly destroyed us all. Considered his words. You weren't wrong about advancement, Ash. You were just wrong about what it means. True advancement isn't throwing away the old. It's knowing when each tool is right for the job. Your quantum research is valuable. We'll need it for the next threat. But we also need to remember that simple solutions sometimes work best. The scientist nodded slowly. Perhaps we could work together, combine quantum technology with mechanical backup systems, learn from each other. I'd like that, said, extending his hand. They shook, 2 beings from different worlds, finally understanding each other. In the days that followed, the Coalition changed. Humans were no longer relegated to menial tasks. They served on councils, led research teams, and commanded ships. The galaxy had learned that being young didn't mean being inferior. Earth's fleet finally arrived. their old warships ready for battle. But the battle was already won. Instead, they became the foundation of a new coalition defense force, combining primitive reliability with advanced capability. 3 months later stood in the maintenance tunnels of Apex 7, checking a coolant line. It was peaceful work, fixing things, keeping systems running. Some things never changed. Found him there, clipboard in hand. She had been promoted to Earth's first coalition ambassador, but she still visited the maintenance levels regularly. "You know you could be up there," she said, pointing toward the command levels. "Making policy, being important." "I am important," replied. "These pipes matter. These systems matter. Everyone matters no matter where they work or what species they are. That's what we proved." "That we did," smiled. "By the way, there's a new generation of engineers coming aboard next week. Mixed species teams. Human, all working together. They want to meet you." "Tell them I'm just a maintenance worker," said. "Nothing special." "You saved the galaxy." He thought about that for a moment, then smiled. "No, we saved the galaxy, all of us working together. That's how it should always be." Left him to his work, finished with the coolant line and moved to the next repair. The tunnels were quiet, the station humming peacefully above him. Somewhere out there, the galaxy continued turning, full of species learning to see past their assumptions. And in the depths of Station Apex 7, a maintenance worker who everyone had overlooked went back to doing what he did best: fixing things, making sure everything ran smoothly, being exactly where he needed to be. Because heroes come from everywhere, even from places people never think to look.